This is the book of Maccabees. This is the first book, and this is a story that happened sometime before Christ came. And it's a very important book because we celebrate Hanukkah, which comes from this story of what actually happened. And most of the world celebrate Christmas, which is pagan, and this feeds into the Christmas story. So here we go. This is the book of Maccabees. I'm reading from the Septuagint, but you're actually looking at the Sefer. Okay. Chapter 1. And it happened, after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honourable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and he parted his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, then he died. And his servants barely rule, every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes. He was the son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he ruled in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. And now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, which is Mizraim, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Therefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him, and he fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and he took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels and vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. And he took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were. So that the princes and elders moaned, the virgins and young men were feeble, and the beauty of woman was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitations thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and the walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armour and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there. So they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her. And her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honour into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonour increased, and her excellency turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and the festival days, pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh, pig's flesh, and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanations, to the end they might forget the law and change all ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. In the same manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice, city by city. Then many people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law. And so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succour. Now, the 15th day of the month of Kislev, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, and burned them in the fire, and whosoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Verse 59. Now the 25th of the month they did sacrifice upon the altar, the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. 25th of the month. I just want to pause there. I've got a little note in my book that I've been reading. I will show you. They set up abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars. Okay, and then just further down, it was on the 15th of Kislev. Now, the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God, on the 25th of Kislev. That is now today, the 25th of December. It was Nimrod's birthday. They are pagan. You see, everybody assimilated. Similar to today. I'll just show you my notes on verse 41. I'll just go over because it's hard to look at when it's moving. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. Doesn't that sound familiar for us today? I wonder if it's like the one world order. And everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen, okay, agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed upon idols the profaned the Sabbath. They assimilated. Interesting, isn't it? There is nothing new under the sun, as they say. I'll go back now to where we were. I'll just turn the page. Okay, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. So obviously some told this fella to, that they were not going to assimilate, that they were going to keep God's ways regardless. Okay, so these women had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hung the infants about their necks and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat anything unclean. Wherefore, the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died. And there was very great wrath upon Israel, or Yasharel. A remnant kept to the Torah, and they died. And on the 25th, while they were sacrificing the pig on the altar, on God's holy altar, they hung up the babies. Now, Jeremiah talks about, do not be like the pagans and bring in trees into your houses. You see, people put bulls around their trees. They are all reliving what has happened here. The bulls are reminiscence of children, of their heads. And we'll read on, I'll do another chapter later, about other things that happened. There's so much that went on. But the Lord's holy flock never, ever ate anything unclean. They never profaned the holy covenant, the Torah, by which it's God's kingdom. And these people here would rather die than eat a piece of pork. What meat do people put on their tables at that horrid Xmas time of the year? What's the most favoured thing when you look around the shops? What meat is it that's celebrated the most? It's pork, pig. And this guy murdered many holy people, set apart people to his covenant, to his ways. When you abide in the ways of the pagans, you are by what you do. You're represented by what you do. Think about it. It is very important. God says, be ye holy as I am holy. So what's holy? It's Kadesh. It's set apart. Set apart in honour. We are to be set apart because he is set apart. We're different to the rest. We're not to assimilate. And it does concern me by the amount of people that think it doesn't matter. I said a sinner's prayer in 1976, I'm saved. Well, these people would not even eat a bit of a ration of bacon because they knew that they would defile the covenant. What covenant? What covenant are they talking about? You need to go back and you need to read Leviticus and Deuteronomy. I'm doing a study on it at the moment with the Ancient Book Club in detail through the Targum, which is the most correct translation. It was the original writings. When I went into Babylon, it was all written down. And really think about it, because these times are happening again. There is nothing new under the sun. Things do repeat, and you have a choice. And it's a very important, serious choice. Are you going to assimilate, or are you going to be part of the remnant, the called out ones? We're going to read on in the other chapters, and we're going to read about Matthias and Judas Maccabee, and how they stood up against the torrent of men, and what actually happened. So Antiochus Epiphanes was actually known as an antichrist back in 137 BC. It was Alexander the Great that gave him the kingdom, part thereof. So this is history. This is recorded in all the history books. This isn't a made-up fairy tale story. This is actually what happened. And this is their record, the book of the Maccabees. So I really hope that you enjoy the study that I'm doing. So may Yahuwah bless you always as you walk in his ways and in his covenants, under the shadow of his wing.